All right, can everybody hear me? Yeah, oh yeah, okay. I feel like I am projecting now. That's very echoey in here. So 2 PSAs as we get started. For most of you who I don't recognize, probably haven't met before, no, I don't always sound this nasally. I'm having a lot of allergy problems. I normally live in Australia. I am from California, but yeah. And then second thing is, if you haven't so either on the app or on the website, if you click on the class, then you will have seen that there is a link, which for me wasn't clickable when I looked at it, but it is a link to a booklet. So instead of doing a PowerPoint for this, I like to keep things more intimate and leave more time for questions. So I actually made up a booklet for this class, and you can go to that link after this, and all of the stats that I give or anything that's like really important like that, you're going to find all of that in that booklet that you can go and download, courtesy of BookFunnel, because they're amazing if you haven't used them before. So I want to start off by just taking like a temperature of the overall audience, if you don't mind, so I can kind of gear how much I'm going to say about certain things to where you are at in your publishing career. So how many of you have not published a book before? Okay, how many of you have published less than 5? Okay, so this is most of my audience. Okay, good. Okay. So I started out, so my name's Cheryl Bradshaw, by the way. I started out in 2011. So before I talk about what makes mainstream mysteries sell and sell well, I think it's important to dial that back to mysteries themselves, and because I feel like instead of jumping ahead to selling, it's important to go back to the basis of like, how do you get to sell and sell so well? Because you start here and then you go up to selling and selling well. So when I started, I had the luxury of no pay to play. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? Like, you've probably heard that a lot, maybe even this week. Is when I started, it was, I read everything on the planet on J.A. Conrad's blog. If you guys don't know him, you should. His blog is probably still live. But that is kind of how I had an introduction into mysteries themselves. And so back then, you could just kind of put a book up, and if it was a pretty good book, it kind of maybe would gain its own traction, and that's not really the world that we live in today in publishing, and I'll get to that. So back then, there was also better visibility, and I think what I'll say is, when I published my very first book, which took me a year to write because I spent a year researching, which I would highly recommend for those of you who are really new, the mystery genre. I read everything I could get my hands on and trying to learn how to write a mystery that someone's going to like right off the bat. And I thought it was really good. And then when I hit my 10-year mark, I went back and reread the first book that I ever wrote. And I was like, oh no. So I actually rewrote the book. I didn't change the character names or the plot or anything. There was only so much you can do, but I tightened it up. And that's the whole thing. It's like, for me, you have to be, first of all, very forgiving with yourself. Because as you go along, you start off and you think, this is my voice. And a lot of us, the voice that we hear is from what we've read that we like the most. Somebody that you've read, like for me, I remember people would say at the beginning, oh, this tone reminds me of Robert B. Parker or James Patterson. And I was thinking I can't wait until I don't hear that and they hear me. But I didn't know what me was. And so that was a very important part of the beginning of the process. So when I first started, I had, because I have serious OCD, so I had a binder, and I had everything in it from forensics, and I would write down anything I could learn about forensics, and I just kind of divided it into subtopics of the things that you're going to need to know about in your mystery, even whether it's the plot or whatever it is. I also read tons of books, which I forgot to include in the booklet. I was thinking, oh, I should have done that. But on the genre that really helped me get my first start. And no, not every book takes me, now I can write a book pretty fast, but I don't need to take a whole year. But back then I was trying to get everything right, which is impossible. So we always have to forgive ourselves for that. So let's flash forward a little bit to mystery genre today. So today, I feel like mysteries, and I'll give stats on that too, but they are definitely right up there. I mean, when I first started, it was romance, and every offshoot of romance. And mystery and thriller it's always a popular genre. It's always, I feel like, going to be, but right now I feel like it's kind of coming back. So a couple examples of that are, if you guys, has anybody seen the Netflix series Dahmer? And I know it's true crime, but I think it does kind of, like the show does kind of go kind of in the vein of like a regular TV series. So there's that, and there's also, if you watch Netflix, you've probably seen at least one of Harlan Coben's stuff on there. So his first book, Play Dead, came out in 1990 when he was 26. Now he is 60, and he recently signed the 5-year deal with Netflix for putting 14 of his backlist titles into film. So that just shows you that mystery it's kind of coming back and booming today. And I'm hoping that it continues to keep climbing up. So thinking back to when I first started out, some things I asked myself when I was preparing this presentation was, some questions are, what can I do to stand out? What can I do that everyone else isn't doing? What should I be doing that everyone else is doing? So, and then I think because in the beginning, it was very taboo to be an indie author. And so I was still kind of like trying to be on the fence of like, do I want to query? Do I not want to query? What do I want to do? And I thought, querying for me, that's a lot of time. That's time that you could be writing a book and then writing another book and then writing another book. So what I didn't want to do what a lot of my other indie friends that I was making at the time, at the beginning, I didn't want to do what they were doing. And so I thought, well, what can I do to where I can stand out so that if I decide I want to be traditional at this time back then, not now, what can I do that I will get noticed? So, and this is the same thing I would say back then, I would say to somebody today. So what I think is important is there's nothing more important than building your own brand and your own platform. I think a lot of us, it's easy to say like, I'm a mystery writer or I'm this kind of author, whatever, and I just want to write my books and I just want to put them out and I just want people to find them and I just want people to love them. And that would be a perfect world. But we are not just authors, we're marketers, we're our own brand. And no one knows you when you're first starting out. So the whole thing is like, how do you get people when you're at zero to know you? So for me, of course you make mistakes, but I think every mistake is like also a stepping stone, like for learning. So I started off, Twitter was huge back then, and I feel like it's almost a bad word to say Twitter right now because there's lots of opinions going on about Twitter. But I went up and I built myself a brand on Twitter. So I'm going to talk to you about things that like nothing cost money before I ever spent a bunch of money on ads. And my whole thing was, I want to build up a brand so that I can sell and sell well. And then I want to build up a fan base there and then turn that fan base of mystery readers. So of course I'm looking for the right demographic. And then I want to convert those over to people that are going to buy my books. So I built up a following on Twitter. I think I'm not really on there anymore, but way back then, of about probably 40,000 followers in 6 months. And which is, I mean, now that we have TikTok, that probably doesn't sound like a lot, but back then it was like big stuff. So I built it up, and how I built it was I tweeted about things that were relevant or funny or things that had to do with mysteries and writing as I was gathering people. And I'd also use like the hashtags, and then some stuff would get picked up and it would be retweeted like hundreds of times. And you can still do this on places like Facebook today. So instead of going the regular route, I built up all of my platforms, all my media platforms, and then after my third book, I got a call from one of my friends, and she said, "You made the USA Today bestsellers list," and I was like, "Shut up, it's not funny, haha." She said, "No, look online," and I didn't even have any idea, I really didn't, and then I had 3 agents call me in that week, but I'm here to talk about indie publishing. So, but I think that I think when you build yourself up and people notice, you want, everybody noticed, and that was really surprising to me. So, like I was saying before we discuss how to sell, let's talk about learning to sell. So to me, the important things are what I've just been discussing is building your author brand. And part of that, because I knew so many people here were going to be on the newer scale of publishing and just starting out right now, is I wanted to talk about how do you build a following and how do you build up people who are going to buy your books and so you can sell well without spending a lot of money at first if you do not have it. So I already talked about platforms to be on. For me, in mysteries, I mostly have female detectives in my books, that type of thing. I still find that Facebook is where it's at. I have targeted and retargeted and targeted, and I've looked at all demographics, and I am positive that my main demographic is women over the age of 50. And where are they? They're still on Facebook for right now. So it's kind of like the concept of if you build it, they will come. But then you can't just build it, you have to find these people. So some of the stuff I started doing to get readers interested in checking me out, who I was as an author, and then checking out my books, is I would ask getting to know you questions. I'd say, "What mystery are you reading right now?" "What's the best book you've ever read?" "Who's your favorite mystery author and why?" Because in the beginning, all I was trying to do was cultivate a following, and then I was trying to turn them onto my books and then grow them. So I would also play games. People, I'm telling you, the demographic that we write for, they love games. It could be author trivia questions, it can be word search, it could be a guess how many, just anything. So once I did something like that, then what I would start doing is I would post memes that were I think, it's kind of along the lines of when you think of TikTok, things that you think, and we never know sometimes what's going to work or not work, but things you think that people are going to share, because the sharing is where the growing happens. So if you're putting on some really funny meme and it gets shared 1,000 times, there's going to be a trickle-down effect of people that are looking at all of that are going to then click on my name and check me out and start following me. And that is honestly how I've built all of my platforms, is kind of just out of the box thinking. At least I try to. So what can you do that everyone else is not doing? I'm always looking for ways that I do think it's really important to watch what other authors are doing. I sign up for other authors' newsletters in the beginning, especially ones that I really admired. And then I would see, what are they talking about in their newsletter? What are they doing that I didn't think of? And then from there, it'd kind of spark a whole bunch of ideas for me that I could do. So So back then I was not in Australia, I was in Utah, and we had this like big, huge like online classifieds for the KSL newspaper. And so I would go into the books section. I know it's going to sound weird, but just stick with me. And I would post like the first chapter of my book and be like, free download here, or something like that. I cannot believe how many people downloaded it and then would start following me. And it was just, because it was free to post on there. So there's all kinds of like crazy, like out of the box thinking you can do when nobody has ever heard of you before. So another thing is, once you know what your demographic is, to me, it's not enough just to know who they are, it's to know what did they want. Not about just your books, what do they want aside from that? What interests them? Well, I've found that a lot of mystery readers have pets, and they are obsessed with their pets. And so, in my new series, Georgiana Germain, I guess it's not that new anymore, but I put a dog in the series, I never say it right, Samoyed, or whatever. Anyway, beautiful dog, and named the dog Luka. Now, I have a sausage dog, a dapple sausage, and his name is Luka. So they love learning about Luka, my own dog. They love that my dog's name is in the series. It's weird, but they do. And all of a sudden, they start asking me a lot of questions about Luka. See, this is where you kind of like can connect with your reader on a level. It's not just about connecting them with them on a level about your book. It's so much more than that. It's like when they feel like they're kind of part of your family, like they know you. You don't have to tell them personal stuff. You know, like I might talk about something I've done here, but it's not in the moment that I've done it. Like I might post where I went to dinner, but I'm not going to post it while I'm at dinner. It'll be after that. But they feel like they know you, and that is important. And so when I found out that they loved Luka, my dog, I created Luka TikTok. And I wanted to do this again. It's like just weird, out of the box thinking. And so you know, he gained 10,000 followers pretty quick, and honestly, like now I can monetize him, and so now that I've built that up, now I can start like putting my book next to him and doing funny things like that. But anyway, so there's always things that you can think of that aren't already out there. All right, move on from that. So. Again, with readers, I think a lot of people focus on like, and I'll still talk about first in series free, and I know it's hard to give away your babies, but if nobody has ever heard of you, then your first goal shouldn't be making money on your book. It should be bringing people in who read your book one, and then they're going to be your follower for life if they love it. It doesn't matter if that first book was free in the end, because maybe when I pass on, they will have read 100 or 200 of my books. So then the first one being free, it doesn't really matter. And I'm not saying forever. I'm saying at the beginning, or if you're not selling right now at all, or if you just can't get any traction, it is okay to do for a little bit of time. And the way I look at it is, when you first meet someone, do you trust them the moment that you meet someone, when you've known them for 5 minutes, 30 minutes? For me, it's layers. I take a long time to trust. But it's the same way when you're bringing a reader in. They don't want to see you talking about, buy my book, buy my book, buy my book. They want to learn, they want a peek behind the curtain. They want to see who you are. Because when they start loving your books, they start loving you. Think about your favorite author. Do you like learning like what they're doing? And I think with time, this is when you build your like fans for life. So I think also if you're a new author, KU is an option. I'm not saying forever. I'm wide. I love being wide. I have a good wide audience. But when you are brand new, back then, there was no KU. It was kind of like, there wasn't Kindle Unlimited. It was kind of like a KDP Select, and I built my brand on that. And then I did that for a couple of years, and then I branched out once I started having a following. So I don't know how many of you know who Gary V is. I never can say his last name right. Vaynerchuk. He always talks about building up a business. And when he talks, he'll say, it doesn't matter what business it is. Everything is the same concept. And I wanted to read a quote that's one of my favorites of his. And he said, you need to spend all of your time and energy on creating something that actually brings value to the people you're asking for money. Give value, give value, give value, and then ask for business. And that's in the booklet, by the way. If I talk too fast, it's not like you're going to be able to write all that down. But so I have books give value, but what value are you creating, like I've just been talking about, outside that book? That's something to ask yourself. Okay, let's see. Gaining superfans. I want to talk a little bit about that. Okay, your landing page on Amazon. If you're not getting any sales, take a look at your landing page versus landing pages of people in the top 20 consistently. I think also out of the box thinking I would say is there are things that you can put, especially on Amazon's landing page, that I never hardly see mystery authors taking advantage of. I'm actually getting ready to revamp all of my pages right now. But one thing I have done is, so in the From the Publisher section and in the About the Author section, did you know that you could put stuff in there? So in one of those, I have my book order all the way down. And like from, all the series, all in order. And I can even talk about that and mostly get away with it in my description. And then the other thing I do is you can put the first chapter of your book in there. And then you can say, include a call to action. You could say, download and read the rest today. Just something simple like that. Okay, I want to leave enough time for questions, so now I'm going to get into some stats. So, according to Nielsen research, and all of these things that I'm getting ready to talk about is in the booklet if you don't want to write it down and you just want to kick back. So, women over 65 are the largest demographic of readers. 45 in mystery, thriller, suspense, that kind of thing. Ages 45 to 65 make up 63% of readers of our type of books. And I want to give a shout out to Alex from K-Lytics, who could not be at 20Books this year. In the booklet, I've got a link to K-Lytics. Amazing if you are not using that. He puts out stats, these videos, every month, and maybe one month it's not on your genre, but in August he put out one on what's going on in the mystery world, and it's fascinating. I don't think there's hardly anything else I think that is more important than knowing exactly what's trending. If you want to sell and sell well, you need to know what categories are selling and selling well. And so I contacted him, and he was like, oh yeah, you can totally use some of that stuff, because it was just such good stuff. So as of August, so just a few months ago, the top categories are, so in mystery, thriller, suspense, thrillers, mystery, crime fiction, and science fiction as subcategories of mystery, thriller, suspense. So a lot of us probably don't write occult, but occult is up 39% from last year. So that is something that is like hot. So when you know these things that are hot, it's easier, I think, to kind of go like, well, I can write that, or I can try to write that, or maybe I should get on that. One thing I like about occult and ghost and stuff too is there's not hardly any books in there. So it's easier to get visibility. The most improved in 2022, was occult, and then dark fantasy with a hint of romance, still under the blanket of mystery. Also, crime fiction is up 22%. These are important when you're picking your categories. If you know that, like right now, crime fiction is hot, then I'm like, I might go in and change some of my categories in there. Also domestic, like all of those family type mysteries that take place, like murder in a neighborhood, that kind of thing. That was up 18% as well. And what I like is domestic is not an overly flooded category right now either. Don't tell anybody I said that. Okay. So hottest subcategories right now: domestic, psychological, kidnapping, and vigilante justice. That is what people are reading right now in subcategories of mystery. Hot keywords, like if you go onto Amazon and you're typing in people, what are people typing in right now? They're typing in crime, FBI, murder, mystery, mysteries. So when you're picking out, when you got your 7 keywords, or how many keywords you have depending on wherever you're publishing your book, that's important stuff to know, because it's little tiny tweaks that can take your visibility from nothing to at least something. Another thing that I do that I wanted to bring up real quick is that I will go in on Amazon to see like what people are typing in, because obviously it's going to come up on the search bar. I'll type in mystery and a space and then A, and then mystery space B, mystery space C. I want to see like what are people searching that I haven't thought about searching before. And that is I found some really cool, weird, like niche things that have kind of just changing your keywords up every once in a while, can make a big difference. I would say my best advice, because I want to leave it open for questions, so I'm trying to breeze through here. To me, there's a couple of things that I think are what a lot of my author friends and I have been doing at this conference and talking to different people at this conference, and things that I want to tell you, stuff that we think is most important right now. From especially whether you're starting out or you've been doing it 5 years, 10 years, whatever, it doesn't matter. I am still going to go back to basics and say there is nothing better that you can do than keep building your newsletter list, or if you don't have one, to get one going. And the reason why is tomorrow, Twitter could close. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm just saying, like, let's say you've built up your fans on there. Let's say you built them up on TikTok. Let's say you built them up on Facebook. Let's say all of your books are on Amazon and there's no other way for people to buy your books. And Amazon goes like, well, we think we're going to take 90% of the royalty now. As far as that, I'm going to dial back and then I'll talk about that for a second. But on your newsletter list, the people that you cultivate on your newsletter list today that stick with you especially, those are your people. They're no one else's people. They are yours. And it's golden, because if I was told that my Facebook was going to close down today, hypothetically, I've got a lot of following on there that goes there to see what I'm putting out, to buy my books. That's great, but what I care about is, are they also on my newsletter list so that I have their personal information? Personal information is golden, because no one can take that away from you. It's yours. I would also say, and this is going to be daunting for some of you that have never tried it before, but trust me, I don't know a lot about, I'm always interested in learning. But I would definitely say, if you can take the time to figure out how to create your own store or sell from your own website, there is no better time than today to do that. I actually just created a Shopify store for myself, which I should have done a long time ago, but I just did that last year. And it was hard for me to learn at first, and hard for my assistant to learn, and we just kind of dug in and watched some videos. There are so many free videos out there to teach you. And once you figure out how to create a product, it's easy peasy. Shopify is basic. And then what I do in my newsletter is I just say, there's a little category in my newsletter where I'll say, new in the Shopify store. And it's like, get this book bundle this week only for this price. And you're getting like 90% plus of the royalties on that if you can if you can convince people to buy from you direct. So then it wouldn't matter if somebody said, we're not doing 70-30 anymore, we're gonna do 90-10. Because if you can convince them to, and it's slow, people that like to buy a certain way, they like to buy a certain way, and that's it. But slowly I am converting and trying to, I think the new thing that everything that I'm hearing in the conference of my group that I'm in this genre is all about building your own store and trying to take people then to that store and sell direct. And if that's something that you don't think is your lane and you're not ready to try that, that's fine. But if you think you would be willing to give that a try, it is completely worth it. You're not going to get royalties any higher anywhere else if you can get people to buy stuff that way. And I have all kinds of crazy stuff. I have like merchandise, I even have mugs with my dog Luka on and that kind of thing. Okay, so anything else that I maybe have left out would be in the booklet, and now what I really want to know is like, what questions do you have for me about selling mainstream mysteries and anything like that? So you can come up to the mic, ask your questions. I would love it. Don't be shy.
Excellent, by the way. Thank you. This has been so informative.
I feel like the stage is massive. I'm like, oh my God.
Sorry. You are my soul sister. When I was reading through the books that you've done, I'm like, oh, there's somebody who's doing this. So I had to look up your genre because I started thinking, maybe I'm not crime, maybe I'm more thriller. And so I feel like it's all honing in as I've been here for these past couple days. But when you said buy direct from your website, if I upload to Draft to Digital and they want to buy a hard copy or an e-copy from the website, is that something that can happen?
Dan?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan, would you mind? They want to say the answer to where the people that are watching it could hear. Oh, I'm thrilled about this. I cannot even tell you.
So right now with Draft to Digital, we don't have a way for you to sell a paperback on your own website, but it's something we're working towards. What I know a lot of people are doing is selling their ebooks and using BookFunnel for the delivery. And that's really easy. Damon's made it very easy to add that to your own website.
Thank you, Dan.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
I have 8 books in my series, a female RCMP detective in Canada. And I'm really happy to hear you here because I target you in some of my ads and in my Amazon ads. So
No, that's great.
I've actually been finding a lot of people, and I found some other people who was like, wrong targets. So question I have is I'm starting a new another 3-book series, and there's going to be, she has a dog. Now I'm going to give her a horse and a cat. And,
awesome.
Yeah,
that's good.
I'm not a cat person, but I can be changed. So, and one of the things is I'm working with a writing coach, and she has told me about Melinda Lee, who is pretty amazing in what she does. But I've noticed she's just started a series of novellas. And I was just in at, oh my goodness, Adam was talking about how he does his. Now, are you ever thinking about doing a shorter version of your books, or how long are your books?
Yes. Okay, so my main series that I started with, remember book 1 that was revised, that is the Solon Monroe series. And I love the series. I'll always love it. It was my baby series. But I wanted to write some grittier detective stuff. So what I did was, I actually have 2 branches off of that. I have 7 Deadly Sins, and that is novellas in that same series. And then my editor wanted to, oddly enough, decided she wanted to start writing mysteries, and she's edited me from day one, so now we're co-authoring on a little bit shorter, like 40,000 word books. Once you get people to love your character, they will read anything from that character, whether it's 5,000 words or 50 million words. Like, if it's, so yes, I definitely think that's a good idea.
That's perfect.
Plus, you can put them out faster. So.
Thank you. I got to get home and start writing.
Okay, do it. Okay, we have 10 minutes, so.
Hi. Do you find that the authors you know who write cozies, that the information that you've talked about today, that applies to them as well?
Yeah, and a lot at conferences like this and stuff, I always know that I'm going to have a mix generally of cozy, especially if there's not a specific cozy speaker that year. So I try to gear all of the relevant information I am giving to whatever subgenre you're writing in as much as possible, no matter what it is.
You talked about how you were exclusive on Kindle Unlimited before you went wide, and how you have talked to other people, and you see the trend being towards people having more ownership of distributing their ebooks. Just over half my reads come from KU, and so that definitely makes me nervous to even think about going wide. So my question is, how do you know, or how did you know when it was time, and what do you think the future is, and are those metrics going to change as more people have access towards being their own delivery system?
Well, I think at first for me, it was people writing me and saying, I really would love to buy your book, but I don't want to buy it on Amazon. Are you think you're ever going to sell it on Apple? Do you think you're ever going to sell it on Nook? And the other thing, you guys, is like, if you can go to conferences where you get the chance to actually meet face to face, there's nothing more important than putting your name and your face to the Nook representative or the Barnes & Noble representative or the Apple representative, because that can take you a long way. And so I was really nervous about doing that at first. And sometimes I actually still do I have a ghost mystery series that I just wrapped, and sometimes I throw that back into KU. Like if it has like a really big ad, like a BookBub or something, and it's doing great, I'm like, maybe I'll throw the series back in, because it's easier visibility when of a subgenre. But it is a scary thing, and I'm glad you asked, because I want to say that just because I did something and it worked for me, it doesn't mean I'm telling you to put all of your cards now in wide. So if you want to, once you get enough books, and you can test the waters a little bit, you don't have to take everything out of KU all at once if that makes you nervous. You can easily just take one or if it's not part of a series, I would say, or if you've started a second series, that's a good time to take your older series and go because you can put it right back in, you know. I will admit and be honest about this too, because I feel I would be remiss if I did not. KU readers they only want to be on Kindle Unlimited, if they do get used to reading your books that way, and then all of a sudden they're not there, sometimes they're not very happy. But that doesn't mean, so I do want to be honest in disclaiming that. I've never really had a problem with that, but I have had author friends that have received emails that I do not want to receive. And the thing is, we're just all trying to see what works for us. And I think, for me, I'm always like, well, I'll try it once and see what happens. And for me back then when I decided to try that, I thought it was more important in trying than not trying at all. And it was slow. I will be honest, because Amazon is king. What did they take, like 90% of readers or something are going to Amazon now? But you can build up an audience there. And with so many authors in KU, there's better visibility on some of the other sites because of that, because they can't have their books on there if they're strictly in Kindle Unlimited. So that's an interesting way to look at it. But I'm not saying to take all of your eggs in the basket and then be like, wide, I think you can do like a trickle down effect to test the waters. I think that would be definitely a good plan. Go ahead.
You said that the statistics you put up are available in a book or a booklet?
Yeah, so if you go on to, what is it, Eventi, I think, thank you, and you click on my class, so on my class page, there's a link right there. It's just a short link that goes to BookFunnel, and you go to BookFunnel, and it'll give you options to download the booklet, which talks about pretty much everything except probably some of these questions, and you can download it. So I'm also going to put the link if you guys are in the 20Books cozy and page and mainstream mystery page. I'm going to put the link on there too after the class is over. Any other questions? Oh, Dan, you have a question?
Would you mind giving like a rough breakdown of, I'm just curious, like ebooks versus print versus audiobooks for your sales?
For a long time, ebooks were like king, even though I always had my books in print and almost all of them in Audible. Like Audible is just what were we talking about? We were like with some Audible people today at lunch, and I think they were saying it's still like something like 10%, but still growing, and especially now that I almost said Shopify, Spotify is put into play. So I would say now, maybe like 60-30-10 being 60 ebook, 30 paperback or hardback, because I've started to do hardbacks now. I was in Amazon's beta for the hardback program, and that's really fun once you start getting to the level that you can do hardbacks there. You can even do a special edition to fans that once you have enough readers that you think are really interested, and do a special edition in the hardback and then promote that out to them, and they'll buy that too, even though they have it on their Kindle or they have it on their Nook or whatever. And I would say 10% Audible. Audible is still a hard thing for me to break out in, but I'm really excited about the fact that Spotify is working with Findaway. And I think that there is some room for growth there, while I still think ebooks are kind of king. But I also think that varies depending on the country that you're in. Like, I'm still struggling to get my print books in an easy, feasible way to people in Australia, and I'm growing big over there because I live there. So you have to, and that's another thing I'd love to say really quick before I end it too, is that a lot of people, when they're doing like ads and stuff, when you get to the point where you start doing ads, people will just consistently target the US, but there's not a lot of people still targeting other countries. So when I went over to Australia, as I've lived there for about 4.5 years now, I thought, I'm going to start targeting Australia and just see what happens. And I wrote a novella actually that I based there that was part of my, it was like a novella that went along with my main series, so it was something I still knew my readers would buy even though it was based there, because I was kind of a test. I love to test stuff. Even if it fails, it's still worth a try. So I will say that that did really well, that book, and so I thought, well, okay, I'm going to start running ads over there, because I hadn't really. I'd done like UK and I'd done Canada, whatever. My cost per click was so much better because it is a smaller demographic, but not a lot of people are targeting them still. So that's when you start doing ads. If you guys are, or anybody that is doing Facebook ads, I would highly recommend targeting countries that people aren't really thinking about, if you can. Okay, I think we're good. 1 minute. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.